All right, sorry for the delay, folks. Had a little bit of technical difficulty getting going today. Let's get this going. All right, hi everybody. Reporting live from downtown Toronto, I am Jimmy Ruffian, and this once again is the Rough Report. We have some things to talk about today. All right, just getting a few things set up here. Bear with me. Today's main subjects are going to be COVID-19 and their rising cases here in Ontario, as well as the great debate that happened last night. We're going to be covering some of the points about that. I know any of us that watched it had quite a time trying to get through that thing. That was pretty ridiculous, to say the least. So we'll definitely be having a conversation about that. All right. As always, I enjoy you being part of the live conversation. So if there's any questions, comments, anything like that you feel like you can grab, or I can grab, you can toss over this way rather. I'd be very into that, as always. Nat is currently going out running some errands, so she's not joining me on the show tonight. I think she's going to be tomorrow. Oh yeah, I got my whiskey. I'm getting all lubricated for the show. Yeah, apologies for starting about 20 minutes later than I was originally intending. Yeah, just a weird technical issue where it wasn't allowing me to connect to all my platforms was kind of taking place. So, sorry about that. All right, so there's one more thing. All right, so let's start with the opening story today. Um, bu- 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 It's not a good one, folks. I hate to be the bearer of bad news here. All right, cool. Glad you had the chance to get the kids to bed there, Jessica. Thank you for tuning in as always. I'm just going to tag some friends who probably, who, if they are home and aren't watching anything at the moment, might be interested in joining the conversation today. Because I know a lot of us watch that debate, and I'm interested to hear some feedback from folks here. Um, Just bear with me here. Yeah, hopefully we get a few more participants. All right. Okay, so the first story of the day, again, not a great one. I hate to open up with such bad news here, but yeah. Ontario projects up to 1,000 new daily COVID-19 cases by October, but no word yet on lockdowns. I think it's pretty obvious what's happening here in terms of the hesitation to go into lockdown. Again, that is the powers that be saw that the potential damage it could do to the economy, and when I say the economy, in the context of how they're most concerned about it, when I say that, it's here, I just want to make sorry. Trying to monitor everything myself here is a little bit difficult. When they say that, they're in the context of the economy, it means the the ownership class, the people who own everything, the people who are most concerned about businesses not running. They're the ones who are running scared right now with the idea of another lockdown. They want you to continue to go to work, send your kids to school, so you can continue to appease and participate in this system. Now, there could be a greater argument within that, sure, but that's the long and short of it. Is this is what they're after, is to make sure that the system, despite any threat to your safety that is in tow, they want to make sure that that system keeps running. Me personally, I'm quite critical of that. I think that our leaders, in a lot of cases worldwide, a lot of countries handled this well, but a lot of leaders worldwide did not handle this thing well. They did not handle this thing well because they didn't want to invest money in it. They didn't want to invest money in making sure that their people were being kept safe, and that's indicative of the sort of steadily right-leaning liberal democracy that we live in. It's getting further and further to the right all the time in terms of prioritizing human values over economic values. We're losing ground on that, folks. And it's screamingly obvious more and more every day. And I'm definitely going to be touching a lot more on that in regards to the American debate that happened last night. But really, this is the long and short of it. 1,000 new daily cases and no talk of a new lockdown is because they're running scared of further damage to the economy, right? It's pretty obvious, or it should be obvious to most people, that when it comes to the worldwide economy, currencies, trade deals, things like that, it's all kind of fabricated nonsense and based on speculation and faith, all sorts of other abstract varying factors that affect what value is and what projected value is and what projected safe credit scores are. Like, the different organizations that measure national credit scores, like the credit score of a country and what they can handle in terms of debt, like Moody's, organizations like that. It's all made up nonsense to appease the ownership class. It's made for and by the ownership class. These concepts, the fact that despite that it's directly contradictory to your own human good or the greater human good of society, that you have to go out and continue to work. I thought the concept of why we go out and work and organize ourselves in this way was because it provides ourselves material benefit. If it's not providing ourselves material benefit, then why are we participating in it? These are questions that we have to seriously ask ourselves and put pressure on the government in terms of it. Like, hey, Doug Ford, why do I have to continue to go to work, get paid the same amount at a greater risk to myself, to appease your buddies and the people who share similar institutional and economic weight as you do? It's absurd. Nothing about anything continuing to stay open and continuing to run as normal is within the interest of working class people. It just isn't. And if there is some sort of other frame of thought that could contradict that point, like the whole idea, like I'm willing to hear it, but I know I've heard the idea of, what is it? The cure is worse than the disease, or the treatment is worse than the disease. What a bogus idea, right? If more people are dying because of the treatment to this disease, the treatment being lockdowns and safety measures to keep us socially distanced and to flatten the curve, so to speak, if those measurements that are within the interest of human safety and societal benefit come in contradiction with the societal benefit of the economy, then there's something wrong with the societal benefit of the economy. The economy is not greater than human good. The economy was created and maintained, apparently, for human good. So if those two things come in contradiction to each other, we got a few choices to make, a few things to think about. As almost I've heard this great dichotomy put before between right and left, is that when capital comes in conflict of human rights or human interest, whether you're right or left is defined on which side you choose in that dichotomy. Are you choosing the side of human interest, or are you choosing the side of capital? That is, I think, one of the simplest ways you can divide right and left and define them, and which you prefer to lean towards. And of course, most people are probably going to say they're into the human benefit, because no one wants to say they're all about the money. There might be some Milton Friedman types out there who will say that, because, what is greed really? It's just people, exercising their freedom, or something stupid that he would say. Kind of was getting off on a bit of a tangent there, but if you have any questions or concerns about some of the things I just mentioned, of course, feel free to voice them. I'm always interested in hearing that. I just want to make sure that... oh, okay. Okay. Sorry. All right. So yeah, no talk yet of lockdowns. I remember seeing the other day we hit 700 daily cases, and as far as I've seen, nobody in terms of the economy is raising a lot of alarms about it. You know, a lot of people on the human level, the interpersonal level, we're all very concerned to see these cases going up, and we have some serious questions about it. But for some reason, on the business level, on the capital level, we're all staying very quiet about it on in that respect. Real interesting. So let's see what Doug Ford had to say about that. We aren't rolling back today. I'm not saying that it's not going to happen, but today that's not a conversation that's going to happen in cabinet. Ford told reporters at a news conference just hours after the provincial government released the stark new forecasting on Wednesday. The Premier, along with Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. David Williams, insisted that while the province reached a record-setting new daily case count this week, it would not emulate the widespread lockdowns seen during earlier phases of the pandemic. It's a different time, Williams said, indicating the province would go after target areas as opposed to moving in broad strokes, adding, for example, that Ontario intends to keep its schools open. I want people to be able to read the subtext of what's happening there. Again, I'm going to drill this point a little bit harder. This is by and for the interest of capital and the ownership class and the industrial class, right? Send your kids to school, continue going to work, despite the fact that it is now more dangerous than ever to do so. That is the interests that are being exercised here. So the comments come as the province confirmed another 625 infections of the novel coronavirus and released updated modeling of the possible curves Ontario could see in its infections throughout the fall. So, basically this is going to get way worse before it gets better, and it's going to get way worse upon being way worse because we refuse to take some of the great measures that we did in the past. And when those measures came, we were all stressed out. We were all worried, but we all bit the bullet, and we did it, and we buckled down. And in some modicum of a way, we had support of our government in the form of, CERB and different benefits, putting off evictions. None of this was, of course, ideal and perfect in my mind, but we were doing something about it that was better than what we're doing now. And again, because the richest people are running scared about what might happen to the economy if we do go back into any kind of a lockdown. This is not in the benefit of the masses. This is not in the benefit of the working class. This is in the benefit of a handful of extremely powerful people who are afraid of coronavirus, and they will use the language of fear-mongering to twist that against you. Oh, we can't be afraid of this disease. We got to continue to go to work. No, they're afraid of you not going to work because of the disease. It is a total sleight of hand in regards to how you're meant to think and feel about this. Yeah, and to anybody who's kind of on that train about doubting the severity of all of this, that's how they're playing you. That is 100% how they're playing you. Like, what is it? This fucking guy in more COVID news. This real piece of work here, like you couldn't tell just by looking at this schmuck that he is the worst. I hate to judge a book by its cover, but like you just know this guy is an asshole upon just looking at his stupid fucking face. So Chris Sekochia was fined $1,000 for violating the Quarantine Act. Why? Because the anti-masker broke quarantine to speak at Toronto anti-lockdown protest after traveling to Europe. People like this have no respect or dignity for their fellow man. They're doing it for their own material benefit, their own glory, right? $1,000 is for openly breaking quarantine while cases are on the rise. For a guy who is apparently of wealthy means, he's gotten his money from real estate, of course, like all great parasites do. Uh, he was only fined $1,000 when the maximum fine is actually $750,000. I can't imagine that fine ever being levied against anybody. But when the range is a minimum of 1,000 to 750,000, and this guy has gone out of his way time and time again to put the public at risk, and he's posed with police officers. Police officers have expressed more or less how they're on this guy's side. Like, do you see the picture that's coming together here? The anti-mask movement is, of course, fundamentally childish and ridiculous. I know people who are mentally and physically very unwell, and in many ways would have every excuse in the world to not wear a mask, and they do. It's only privileged little assholes like this that are behaving this way. Jessica has left a comment here. I always have to remind people this virus will most likely kill my kid. We haven't even set foot in a store since March. It's so disrespectful when I have people I thought were friends and family tell me I'm living in fear and need to open my eyes to the control. What really gets me about that kind of narrative is that those same people are living in fear. They're just sidestepping their fear and calling it something different, right? Oh, you can't keep living in fear. You got to open your mind to the control, because what I'm afraid of is government control. I'm super paranoid about that. Even though they're on the same side in political spectrum of people who are literally trying to take governmental control. Like the type of people who are fascistic, the type of people who want to stop out progressive protests. This protest went off without a hitch, but BLM protests have all sorts of resistance in the form of police and, threats and negative media attention and, all the sort of things that come with actual protest against the system. And then there's this sort of wanker here, they're still living in fear. For them to deny that they don't have a fear of anything is ridiculous. It's just what we're fearing is we're choosing to listen to the voices of actual experts who have been trying to tell us that, these health concerns could be a problem for decades. I don't know how many times I've mentioned this, but worldwide, health experts have said many, many countries are open to being badly hurt in the event of a pandemic. And we just kept ignoring it. The same people who are kind of anti-masker as well, you'll find an incredible amount of overlap with xenophobic fear. They're extremely afraid of the idea of Muslims and brown people. Opening your eyes to the control, that's part of the subtext of what they're saying. They want to control you to get used to the idea of, wearing a hijab, because that's part of the New World Order or something. None of it makes sense. None of it is consistent. None of it is realistic. And all of it is based in fear. The only thing we are afraid of in terms of our political side that I'm talking about, the leftists, the people who actually, want to see this pandemic come to an end and take reasonable measures to do so, is we're concerned about spreading a deadly disease that medical experts worldwide are telling us is a deadly disease, that we're seeing young people being infected, recovering, and then having things like heart attacks and strokes after because of what those symptoms actually do to your body in the long term. We are discovering new things about this virus all the time. And months ago, there was less we knew about the virus, and so of course we overreacted. In retrospect, it's easy to say that we might have overreacted in XYZ number of ways. I don't think we did, because we didn't know. And yeah, even if we know better now when we're talking about these targeted measures, what do they mean by targeted? Do they have a plan for that? Do they know how to target these things and isolate these things and compartmentalize them? It's much easier to do it across the board in broad strokes. Everybody's on the same page that way. We need to be. It's a pandemic. This is goddamn ridiculous. A York Region man has consistently rallied against health measures meant to keep people safe during the COVID-19 pandemic, broke his federally imposed travel quarantine this weekend to speak in an anti-lockdown rally in downtown Toronto. He refers to himself as Chris Sky quite often. He spoke in an anti-lockdown rally in Ireland. He traveled all the way to Ireland for that, and then he came to Toronto to do the same thing. Doug Ford calls this deeply concerning, but he doesn't really do anything to take real serious action because he knows that these type of people are also his base. If Doug Ford, even half the stuff that Doug Ford has done that was actually reasonable measures against this pandemic, if a liberal did it, those same things, these people would be losing their minds about government control and stuff like that. But you're not really hearing a lot about this provincial government coming from these people. Again, they're kind of all on the same political side. It's very convenient what they choose to mention and not mention. Again, I hope everybody's kind of paying attention to this. One of my biggest things about doing any of this is to raise awareness about what we see in the media and how we tend to understand it. And then just being able to have better media literacy and bullshit detection skills. I feel like a lot of us are easily duped. This is just, it's so intense and insane in everything that is going on. And it's overwhelming to me. I can only imagine how overwhelming it is to some of you. I have a tendency to revel in the chaos. Uncertain times are somewhat familiar to me. It's a weird benefit or trauma response, or however you want to put it. I don't care how I put it. I just know I'm processing it in a certain way, and I feel a need to go online and tackle these ideas. I don't know. But if I'm having a hard time with it, I can only imagine how the general amount of people are. It's really intense, and I feel it's okay to recognize that, and it's okay to realize that this stuff is intense, that there is something potentially to be scared of, that there's a lot of things to be scared of. Being afraid isn't necessarily bad. It's how we react to that fear and the measures that we take. It's the only thing I can say is just to kind of round this back and hammer further on the point that the only reason any of this kind of anti-COVID, anti-lockdown, anti-mask wearing stuff happens is out of their own sense of fear. Whether it be based in conspiracy theory about how Muslims are going to take us over, or something completely bonkers like that, or some fear about the economy that is based on complete nonsense. If we wanted to decide that, any of this international debt that exists between us no longer exists, we could decide that. It could be easily decided. It's all just made up numbers. It has nothing to do with being sunk in actual resources. And that's the most frustrating thing to me. that these structures of power are just completely based on numerical faith in hegemony and nepotism and cronyism amongst this high class of people, the big old club that you're not in. And yeah, they're just going to continue to send you to work and continue to send you to school so they can extract more value off of your labor. Kelly leaves a comment. My favorite response from the anti-maskers is that the government is trying to get complete control. First of all, what was the point if that's your assumption? What if you fucked up the whole economy just to make you wear a fabric on your face? Plus, clearly, it is about control. Or plus, clearly, if it is about control, it isn't feasible because the government has even admitted they can't police mask wearing. They're just asking you to be considerate of others. Yeah, the same evil little conglomerate of people that have been investing billions of dollars into facial recognition technology and all this invasion of privacy via technology are the same people trying to get you to cover up your face. Does that sound logical or consistent to any of you? Jesus Christ. But, you know, again, none of this is about being logical or consistent. It's, as I mentioned on a previous episode of the show, it's about saying fuck you to the libs. It's about a driven hatred towards this idea that there's these deep state people that are secretly trying to rob you of your rights. Meanwhile, there's people right there in plain as day light taking your rights away from you, but they're acting in such a way that you thank them for it. And that brings me to my next subject of the American debate that happened last night. Tons of Americans openly thanking Donald Trump for his encouragement of fascistic ideas. So I'm going to play through a portion of the debate. I'm going to start from a section somewhat in the middle and kind of move along from there, because this is where the subject I'm more or less interested started. So let's pull it up here. All right. And first of all, I'd like to conclude that, include my prerequisite that if I were American, I would be voting for Joe Biden. Not enthusiastically, by any means. It would be purely out of the recognition that I know that despite my voting or not, there is going to be an American president chosen. And by mere virtue of that, I would very much rather it not be Donald Trump. So, let's take a look here.
He doesn't, that's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about here.
All right, that's the end of the segment. We're moving on.
All right, they were talking about Medicaid there, but that was just the end of the questions. Getting into the next part that I wanted to kind of cover here. So if you haven't seen the debate yet, congratulations. It was every bit as bad as everybody is saying and predicting it was. But yeah, there's a section of it here in particular that I wanted to highlight and cover and unpack. So again, if you haven't seen the debate, this is going to be fresh to you. If you have seen the debate, hopefully us unpacking it together is going to be a cathartic experience.
Take them.
Well, Vice President, no.
Can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
No,
He stood up.
A lot of this.
No, the answer to the question is no.
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
That
get rid
is
of
absolutely not true.
You're doing it.
You're gonna.
This is actually a great, like that, everything that is happening right now is a great microcosm of pretty much what the entire debate was.
True.
Gentlemen, I hate to raise my voice, but it seems to be, why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the deal.
Good point.
Yeah. There's so much I'm thinking about this. I almost went off on a tangent than what I'm doing here, but I'll round back to that.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well,
and him too. Like, this guy is a freaking child. This is childish. Oh, him too. Oh, he's interrupting me. To anybody with their senses about them watching this debate, in any debate, this happens in every single debate. If you are experienced at watching debates at all, people interrupt each other. Even when they're not supposed to, even when they're the most civil and clear-minded of people, in the heated moment of a debate, people at one point or another are going to end up interrupting each other a little bit. It's to a certain extent expected to happen. That's kind of partially the reason why there's a debate moderator. That's why they're there. It's like that little moment of this, everybody kind of like trying to talk over each other. It happens so often. So the fact that Chris Wallace, the moderator, didn't start cutting mics at some point, like, it was so obvious that Donald Trump was way worse for interrupting than Joe Biden was. And that was the point I was trying to get to. Sure, Biden interrupted. He did his fair bit of it, but it was nowhere near to the ratio that Donald Trump was interrupting. Nowhere near. And that shouldn't have to be said. Like, again, like, what schoolyard antics is this when we have to actually mention that? Like, it just shouldn't need to be said. Yes, people interrupt each other. There's the moderator. The moderator cuts in, and then you obey the moderator. Or you respect the moderator and realize, okay, yeah, I'm interrupting. I got a little heated. Let's let this move on. Trump literally can't do that. He is such a fundamentally frail and insecure man that he just can't deal with the fundamental nature of how debates work. And there's like Joe Biden just praying for the patience to deal with this guy. Again, I hate Joe Biden, but in this dichotomy of these 2 idiots going at each other, I got to have a certain amount of sympathy for the guy. He's got to be in pain right now, you know? All right, here we go.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting
Well, that's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well,
that's all right,
than,
but he does
sir,
plenty.
less
There's
than
plenty.
No,
Like,
less than
it
you have.
shouldn't need to be
Let's
said.
Please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done.
You know what? That was probably, in my opinion, the only funny thing or accurate thing that Trump said all night. I don't know if you caught that. What just happened there? Let's see if I can go back.
I think that the country would be better served if we, less than to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump.
Oh, yeah, sure. That was actually kind of funny. I'll give it to Trump on that one. Why? Because he's probably right. Oh, it was that moment that directly led you to choose to run for president. Oh, shut up. I mean, like in terms of Joe Biden's history as a politician, and himself not being so great on racial issues, that was the reason that he decided to run. I don't even know if the most staunch of Joe Biden fans would believe that. That just sounds like a thing you say for campaign strategy, like a fake backstory for marketing purposes. I myself do not believe that. But anyway.
Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you.
I'm sorry to laugh because I know black people and black activists must be enraged at hearing this stuff, but it's so bonkers. He's done more for black people. Come on. It arguably second only to Abraham Lincoln. I don't know if this occurs to a lot of right-wing people. But Abraham Lincoln really didn't do a lot for black people. Sure, like there was the Emancipation Proclamation, but deciding to end the disgusting, historically evil act that was American slavery it was like a bare minimum of decency. Through the rest of his career was not really focused on elevating the status of black people in America. That wasn't his interest. Even some of his closest black colleagues in politics and influence at that time period. I forget the guy's name. It's disappointing me now that I can't remember. But he referred to Abraham Lincoln as a white man's president. He still is a white man's president, to quote that individual. So, like, this whole ahistoric concept of how, beautiful and great America is, Abraham Lincoln did so much for black people to elevate them. Not realizing how disgusting the process of slavery was to take everything away from those people. When you elevate somebody after taking away so much from them, and you don't even elevate them back to where they originally were in the first place, that's not a win. That's not decency. It's better than furthering the outright evil, but that's not decency. Anyway, continue.
Is why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people...
That's some pretty liberal fluff. Like, we never walked away from it. No, the liberal thing to do is just pretend the problem isn't there until it's so loud on your doorstep you pay lip service to it, like Joe Biden is here. But to his credit, he is correct in the contrast to Donald Trump. Donald Trump has not only outright turned his back on that struggle, he's thrown gasoline on it.
Well, close your eyes. Remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president has ever said anything like that.
It is.
Oh, finish the statement. Say the whole thing that I said. It doesn't matter. Everybody knows what you said, Donald. Finishing that whole statement would add zero further context to what your intentions were behind those words. And in just a few minutes, we're going to see you double down on that same idea. So this guy, he can't remain logically consistent within a 10-minute period. I don't see how any well-meaning person can back Donald Trump. I don't get it. I struggle to get it. It's... I want to very much understand my enemy to learn how we could possibly overcome and get through to them. in a myriad of different ways. But this is baffling.
Now,
Sir.
second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done.
You know, talking about it in the context of the coronavirus and not the further underlying conditions, it's not like black people just get infected more often. There's way more to it than that. There's underlying economic conditions that lead to that. Economic conditions that are systemic and pressed upon black people generationally. Hence, part of the problem. So, you know, Joe Biden can go on saying this lip service about equality, but then he'll drop a little factoid like that to try and get a one-up over Donald Trump, but not actually get to the point, not actually get to the meat of the issue. And this is why, liberalism and guys like the Democratic Party establishment that we can see exemplary in Joe Biden is so ineffectual. In the long run, it will not serve the working class. This guy, at best, come this election, if he wins, is a Band-Aid against fascism. A temporary Band-Aid.
Done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African-American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes.
It's just
Why
such a
should
weak answer.
Americans...
There's so much he could have talked about more in terms of the problems regarding the African-American community under the Trump presidency. But he just mentioned coronavirus numbers. It just feels like such a weak point to go after.
Trust you over your opponent to deal with racism.
he did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten.
Again, this freaking guy. But again, like the right wing and Donald Trump and his supporters do not care about this level of hypocrisy. I have no delusions about that. But maybe somebody does. But if you remember the story about here, make sure I'm gonna just switch this off for a second. I want to make sure I'm pulling up my resources properly here. Yeah, the Central Park 5. Remember that? Remember the Central Park 5? It was a criminal case in the United States over the aggravated assault and rape of a white female jogger during a series of reported attacks in Manhattan's Central Park on, it was a Central Park jogger case. Yeah, the Central Park 5. Yeah. The 1989 case of 5 teenagers who were wrongfully accused of raping a woman. Now, Donald Trump went on a personal crusade against these young black men during that time. He took out full-page ads paid for by his own money to try and demonize them. So for Trump to get up there and criticize Biden or anybody for calling them super predators or whatever, and the extreme hypocrisy there not be mentioned. Like, I feel like Joe Biden really dropped the ball in any kind of response to this. Because it's just so obvious. Like the right wing gets fed by liberal democracy because they love the idea of when liberals fail to lead up to liberal values. It furthers their cause. It furthers their morale by saying, see, liberal causes never work. All it is lip service. So we get to be assholes and racists and bigots and classists and class traitors. We get to do all of that because time and time again, liberals prove that they're hypocritical in their intentions. But then this happens, and it doesn't matter. Because we all know Donnie's an asshole, and these people love him for it. They're not even going to think about like how he went on that racist tirade against the Central Park Five.
Forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir. It's
They've
just
never
too much.
forgotten
So
it. Well,
you did
yeah,
that, and they called you
I
a
have
super predator.
nobody's
and I'm
forgotten the
letting people
Central
out
Park
of jail
Five,
now
Donald.
that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in
What a
this
word
country.
salad
You did
that
the
was.
1990, and that's why if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that. Because you look back at your testimony.
You've
over
called
the
them
years,
worse
you've
than
called them
that,
a lot
Donald.
worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals. Total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group
He's just
in the
going on
United
weird
States.
tangents.
I
This
have
doesn't even have to
Florida,
do
I
with
have
race
Texas,
issues.
I have
I have
Ohio.
Florida, I have
I have
Texas,
every,
I have
excuse me,
Ohio.
Portland. You're going to lose all of your radical left supporters.
I love that. That's something he keeps saying. You're going to lose all of your radical left supporters to Joe Biden. Joe Biden doesn't have radical left supporters. He might have people on the radical left that will vote for him because, again, he's not Donald Trump. But nobody on the radical left supports Joe Biden. Joe Biden lost any chance of doing that when he took this soft approach against police in the defunding of police and the soft approach on universal health care. And again, these are not even far left issues, but like failing to even reach that. He doesn't have support of anybody on the far left. You're going to lose support of everybody on the far left, Joe. Like, who are you talking about?
I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words,
This doesn't make any
Joe?
sense. Oh, law and order. I love law and order, law and order, law and order. Again, this is the whiff of fascistic stuff. The fetishization of law and order is fascistic. You know what a more liberal sense of law and order is? And one that is, despite it being liberal and me being, not totally liberal, it's a lot better than fascistic. I'll give it to Joe Biden, what he's about to say.
Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago,
Radical left
if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle.
He doesn't know what radical
they heard
left
we were coming in
is.
the following day, and they put up their hands, and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left, and they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe.
Like, none of that makes any sense. Democrat-run cities and like radical leftists, like there's just radical communist mayors all over the place. Like, it's none of what he said was based in any reality whatsoever. That it just doesn't make any sense.
To a point where, and I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you?
Oh, okay. Maybe this isn't the part, but he, for some reason, when he was pressured further on law and order, he mentioned something about, law and order with a sense of justice, with a sense of understanding the human condition. I forget exactly how he put it, but yeah, when you fetishize law and order and enforce it to 100% of its power and degrees, that is fascistic. The reason you have a trial in many cases, in all cases, sorry, the reason you have a trial, the reason that everybody has a right to a trial is to sift that out and to be sure that the law just isn't even isn't being applied 100% to its brutal force despite any varying circumstance. That's why law, like when you're talking about law and order, the courts are part of that, Donald. And if you want to talk about law and order, let's talk about Donald Trump's career as a criminal. Again, I know no one on the right cares about this hypocrisy, but the fact that no one on television is willing to come out bold and strong against Donald Trump on that point. Hey, Donald, you cheat on your taxes. You rip off the American people constantly. Hey, Donald, how many times have you broken the law and had to pay for it? How many times have you gotten sued for discrimination and had to pay for it? How many times have you not paid people that have worked for you and, again, gotten sued for that? This man has no regard for law and order in any degree whatsoever. But what it's about is appearing strong against liberal ideas. It's about reverting back to an idea of America that doesn't exist. This fetishization of their history as just being strong and bold and innovative and white. That's what Make America Great Again is returning to a series of values that was never quite really there. But it's idealized and romanticized as being there, and it's something that we can somehow get back to. Everything he's saying, everything he says, leads towards his fascistic intentions.
Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples, and when they
that's the typical liberal answer that you would expect from Joe Biden. Is he kind of opens with the right thing by saying he recognizes that systemic racism is a thing, but then kind of pulls back and coddles the idea that most policing is fundamentally good, without first mentioning that there needs to be some serious changes in how we approach policing. But anyway.
When they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable.
But he's right.
They have to be held accountable.
If you do find them, they have to be held accountable.
What I'm going to do as President of the United States
and that's a pretty obvious thing.
Together, an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops.
I guarantee a lot of them were pretty okay with it. But again, this is the liberalism of Joe Biden. It's, coddling things that don't deserve to be coddled so he doesn't come off as extreme as the right would like to portray him.
Cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of a town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place?
And kill people all over the place. That's a lie. Kyle Rittenhouse murdered people. Somebody got murdered in Charlotte in the Charlottesville protest, as Joe Biden mentioned earlier. So when you're talking about people getting killed, that's the right wing doing that, Donald. So that's an out-and-out lie. But he's going to try and bring up how rioting is not peaceful protest and things like that. And this is a talking point that dates back right to the Martin Luther King days. When he was fighting for civil rights and having his peaceful protest, the racist side of things that wanted to shut the civil rights movement down said the exact same things about him. The exact same things. That should not be forgotten. What Donald Trump is saying now is the exact same stuff that racists in the civil rights era were saying against Martin Luther King to stifle his movement. The same people that try and, on Martin Luther King Day say, oh, he was such a gracious black man that did so much for civil rights, we should appease him, unlike those, nasty black people now. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. So again, further fascistic evidence. Pretty much everything Donald Trump says throughout this entire debate is indicative of that. But I started this from the 50-minute point. And everything he says from the 50-minute point, because it's usually regarding race and racial dynamics, he completely shows his hand in how completely fascist he is in every single thing that he says.
You
It's
say
not
peaceful
peaceful.
President
No,
Trump,
it's
I'm not
but
asking-
you say it is.
I did
President
not
Trump, I'd
say-
like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order
Please.
in a moment.
Fine.
This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was
He's
a
not
radical,
mentioning anything specific, right?
revolution that was taking
It's
place
insane,
in our
it's
military,
radical, it's racist.
in our schools.
It's happening in our
all
military and
over
our
the place,
schools.
and you
It's
know
happening
it,
all
and
over the
so does
place.
everybody
What
else.
is
And
radical?
he
you
would
know
be
it, and
honest
I
about
know it.
Racial-
Know what, Donald? And I'm getting upset at this not because of Donald Trump, but because of the number of people out there that talk exactly like this in this conveniently loose terms. Whenever you see me get particularly excited in a debate, is because that's what annoys me. Is because you're saying nothing. It's happening here, it's happening there. Both sides. Like fluff and nonsense bullshit. You're just sucking up the air in the room and wasting everybody's time. It doesn't mean anything. So if you want to talk about how critical race theory and unpacking and understanding racism for the sake of progress is in of itself racist, you got to say a little bit more than that. Because other than that, all he's doing, again, in his fascistic nature, is presenting these false romantic ideas of what America is supposed to be. And he's just going to sink further and further into it the more he talks.
Sensitivity training, sir.
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a
you're a certain
reversal.
person.
And if you look
Reversal,
at the people,
reverse
we were paying
racism.
people hundreds
Yeah.
of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly very sick ideas.
Very bad
and
ideas,
really,
very
they were
sick
teaching-
ideas. What ideas? What are you talking about? Like he's giving no detail whatsoever on what's involved in racial sensitivity training. But he's saying everything that his base would want to hear about it. No details, nothing. It's just strictly fiery rhetoric. And so many people talk like this.
teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people.
See, remember I was saying before about how fascism is the idea of going back to an idea that was never really there? The core values of this country. We got to go back to the core values of this country. Fascism.
That our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country.
Teaching accurate history, if that's teaching people to hate your country, then there's something wrong with your history, and you have to do something in society to rectify it and move forward, which is what the idea of critical race theory and these actions are supposed to do. Teaching racial sensitivity training is supposed to recognize that, yeah, racist things happened in the past. We're going to stop it, do something about it, and move forward. That's what that is. Ending it is nothing more than appeasing his base and furthering his fascistic feelings. It is undeniable. And I want to give a homework assignment to all of you is to pay attention to this stuff and find a Donald Trump supporter around you, sink your teeth in, and don't let go.
And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
You just don't.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about
You
this
don't
than he
know.
does.
Let him finish.
The fact
Like, the fact that he can just go, he's the racist. Like, Biden, you can't be possibly any weaker. Like, this guy has no teeth. Literally, he has no teeth. He's actually talking in dentures. But that's besides the point. Like, he has no political teeth. It's just more of this liberal establishment, democratic establishment nonsense that everybody is so sick of. Hopefully, they're just more sick of fascism.
fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what
He's
is
not wrong.
demeaning to them. It's important to people know. They don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem.
Skip a little bit over here.
It's people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism
Vice
in America.
President.
Okay. Yeah, there's nothing we can't do if we do it together, including defeating this soft-ass, no-teeth liberalism that allows guys like Donald Trump to just steamroll over everything. But anyway.
I mean, President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson. You go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but the
Lord.
reason
This
is
That was the
that
best,
Democrats
reaction.
that run these
Absolutely
cities
ridiculous.
That was the best reaction Biden couldn't have. Just say, "Oh my Lord!" Like, what else do you say to total lies like that? Really, there was more violence then than there is now. That's a lie. It's a lie.
don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
violent
Are you in
crime.
favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of
There it is.
law. You following
Are you in
it and a little
favor
bit
of law and order? Go
Yes,
ahead,
I'm
say
a
it.
You
everybody's
asked a
in favor
question,
of
let him finish.
law and order.
Right there, when you said, "I'm a fan of law," you should try following it sometime. Should have been the point that he drilled into there, and then mentioned Trump's history of criminal behavior and covering up for criminality. So he dropped the ball there, in my opinion.
Loses
Law
lefty.
and order.
Let him answer.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 17%, 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down
He-
much more
he
in
had-
ours.
All right.
It went down
you're
much
Mr.
more.
President, you're going
States
to,
of America.
China, we
Mr.
were
President,
breaking every
you're-
record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very happy because
And
we're now going to talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic.
Mayors and Democratic governors, but in
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died, shot. If you look at
Shot.
New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200% crime. It
Republican
is
cities.
crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does
He
that,
said that like 3 times, and it doesn't mean anything.
it's over with. But if he ever got to
law and order, though, and
came out and supported you, go
Look,
ahead.
look.
Think. We have time.
We don't have time to do
No.
anything, having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face.
We have time.
There's
We
one
don't have
thing.
time to do
No.
anything.
excuse me, sir, you had never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to call
Because
bring in
the-
the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots,
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay
I'm
out.
just gonna-
to condemn white supremacists.
There we go.
And
This is
Get everybody together, figure out how to deal.
This is the point that I want to stop at, and this is probably the most famous point of last night's debate, happening at around the 5 after the hour mark. This is it. This is him completely showing his hand. It's undeniable. Anybody who's a Trump supporter and denies that Trump is a racist, denies that Trump has fascistic intentions, needs to be shown this clip. And you need to watch it with them and float over their shoulder and say, what the hell is that? And again, sink your teeth in, don't let go.
Deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly,
And
every single solid.
No, you've been talking back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to
you know,
end it.
sir.
I would love to end it, and
You
we
know, if
would
you want to
very-
switch seats,
We would very quickly.
We could do that, but
I'd
I'm
send
no,
in the National Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay,
But they
good.
don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the.
Yeah, going in, sending in the National Guard to squash a protest because you don't want to appease the demands of citizens is pretty fascistic. And I can see why certain people who aren't fascists wouldn't want to do that.
The vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists
Pay
and militia
real
groups
close attention here,
and
folks.
to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm willing
prepared
to
to
do that,
specifically?
but
I'm willing to do that. Doesn't do it.
Do it.
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say
Go ahead,
almost
sir.
everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right
So
wing.
what are you
If
saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
Which white supremacists? Like he just said, denounce white supremacy, and all he could do is like, oh, what do you want to call him again? He had a deer in the headlights look. He is afraid of rocking his base here. Like let's pay a real close attention to the look in his eyes when he realizes by both the moderator and his opponent that he's in a corner.
right
So
wing.
what are you
If
saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
What-
Yeah.
White
Go ahead.
supremacists
Who
and
would
right
you like me to condemn?
white
Proud Boys.
supremacists and right-wing
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what.
Stand back and stand by. To the Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. He said, will you denounce white supremacists? And all he could say was, what? The Proud Boys? Yeah, all right, stand back and stand by. So no denouncement of white supremacy or fascist ideas whatsoever. He out and out dodged it. And what is he going to immediately pivot to?
I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
His
This
own
is a left-wing.
FBI.
And this is it. The fact that Donald Trump is willing to go out there and be so disingenuous and so outwardly fascistic and pat the backs of his fascistic fans and light the fire underneath them. And that there is no one on the liberal side or the left side who is willing to challenge that in any tangible way. They just go, oh, it's so rude and so inappropriate. Violence is never the answer in a protest. No, when somebody says something like that, when you're the leader of your country says something like that, the social contract is broken. It's broken. He has broken the social contract. And thusly, citizens do not have any sort of sense of moral obligation to hold up their end of that contract. There is no denying his intentions here. Donald Trump is a weak, scared individual, and the only thing he cares about is power and maintaining his sense of power, his sense of winning. And the fact that there's no one in opposition to him or in enough of a position to be in opposition to him in any real tangible way in this political spectrum that will go after him the way he needs to be gone after. To call this out the way it needs to be called out. Like, you know, you'll get the pundits saying, yeah, he failed to call out white supremacy. But they're not going to talk about it. in the way we need to resist it. What are we going to do to fight against it? Yeah, we can say, he did it. He did that. It was so nasty. We can say that until we're blue in the face. What are we going to do about it?
This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacist.
Yeah. Like, sowing the seeds of division, everything. Like, and then relaying it as if it's constantly the right wing that's doing it. It's fucked. It is beyond enraging. It should enrage you. If you're having an emotional reaction and somebody's trying to, like, some right winger wants to say to you, "Oh, cheer up, snowflake." Yeah. Remember how bad they were freaking out anytime something that they didn't like happened, like, you know, I don't know, gay marriage happening, and the amount of protests that happened to that. Like the fact that they try and say your emotional reaction invalidates you is, again, classic right-wing hypocrisy, because they have only emotional reactions to everything. My emotional reaction comes from the fact that this is such a denial of logic that it's infuriating. You should be angry. Anger is the only appropriate response to what you just watched. The only one. All right. So that kind of rounds off the hour. I'll go in I'm just going to end the show right here, I think, because, you know, I just sort of want to clear my head and think about more ways we can expand on this tomorrow, because believe me, I'm going to be, because I wanted to talk a lot more about understanding the mechanisms of fascism and how we're going to move forward in the future. What is to be done, you might say. So I'm just going to cut myself off here and save that for tomorrow night's show. 7 o'clock we'll be going on the air again, and we'll be covering our usually we cap off the show with a nuts and bolts segment about community organizing, but again, I'm going to be talking about that a bit more tomorrow. So thank you so much once again, everybody, for watching the Rough Report tonight. I love you and I appreciate you. Yeah, that's basically all I got left to say. Does anybody, before I sign off, has anybody got any additional questions or concerns here? Yeah. Just going to get my music queued up. Yeah, thank you once again, everybody, for watching tonight. Man, that debate, it was something really rough, but I hope we all very much recognize the declaration of absolute fascist intent in Donald Trump. And we are going to start thinking about real seriously what we got to do about it, how we're going to recognize it, just how we're going to digest and deal with it in general. So, everybody, thank you again so much for watching.